In a world still chasing economic justice, one voice rises to inspire change. From the streets to the boardrooms, from ideas to real action, Cornell Cruz Jr. invites you to listen, learn and transform. Drawn from the people, the community, always present, always pushing forward. Together we build opportunity, we build trust, and we build a just economy for all. This is the Just Economy Project, where equity has a sound, and the future begins with you.
Welcome, everyone, to the Just Economy Podcast. I'm your host, Cornell Cruz Jr., Executive Director for the Community Reinvestment Alliance of Florida. We are a nonprofit organization serving the entire state. What we do is ensure that the banks reinvest into the community per the Community Reinvestment Act of 1977. Also providing collaborations, partnerships, as well as we run a nonprofit capacity building grant project. So today we're going to be joined by Alexa Diaz Formidoni. I'll introduce her in a minute. She's going to talk about what her organization does, providing services to the nonprofits to help the nonprofits become better. So before we get to that, again, we are a statewide membership organization. I need your membership in order to facilitate fighting for the Community Reinvestment Act, fighting for affordable housing, fighting for social services, mortgages, as well as investment in small businesses that the banks are required to do. We also do community benefits agreements where we partner with the banks to increase their investment into the community. So membership is needed for that, as well as to bring you to the table in order for you to have these conversations, not just me, but for you to have these conversations as well. Will come July 30th in Tampa at the Tampa Bay CDC. We're going to be holding a bankers roundtable. We'll have several banks in the room to talk to you about what it is they do. They're going to talk about their sponsorship opportunities. They're going to talk about their investment in the community. They're going to talk about their different projects that they're interested in. So you'll actually be able to do a Q&A with them as well. I will facilitate that meeting, so I look forward to seeing you there. Those folks in the Tampa-St. Pete area, we're also going to be launching a nonprofit capacity building project that is powered by Valley Bank this time for financial capability resources for organizations with budgets of $100,000 or less. And in that project, what will happen is we'll pick anywhere from 8 to 10 organizations out of the applications in order to receive those services. They will have a 990. They will have audit. They will have set up in QuickBooks. And they will have resources for QuickBooks for up to a year and monitoring for up to a year, as well as making sure that your financials are straight. It was amazing. The last project we did earlier this year with this particular project, the 100K and less, we had 9 grantees that we awarded. Of those 9 grantees, they had their SunBiz. They were up to date on the Florida Division of Corporations. They had their IRS number from the IRS designating them as a nonprofit organization. But here was the kicker: of the 9, 8 did not have a bank account. 8, I'll say this again: 8 did not have a bank account for their organization. And our partner CPA, who does this work for us, who we partner the awardees with, actually got them stabilized and got them to a bank account. That is so important, and I was amazed. And when I tell people that of the 9 that we did, 8 did not have a bank account, they were amazed at that. So if you're in the Tampa-St. Pete area and you want to apply for this grant, I will be there again July 30th to the launch of this grant. Everything is online. 3-page application, 3 to 4 documents that need to be submitted, and it'll be open for approximately 2 weeks. We have a separate review committee that comes in and scores the grants, and then we write a check to the CPA and partner you with them with the CPA in order to get squared away. You cannot as an organization think that you're going to be able to request sponsorships, you're going to be able to request grants and be able to apply for grants if your financials are not straight. That no bank was going to sponsor you without that. So trying to strengthen these organizations and get these organizations to the point that they can actually be able to apply for these grants, not just with the banks, but also with government, city, county, state, or federal. Your financials have to be squared away. So we're getting you on the road to that. So I look forward to that, and I look forward to seeing you July 30th. So today, we're going to bring in our special guest, Alexa Diaz Formidoni. She is the founder and CEO of Be Better Together. So I want to welcome you, Alexa. Me and Alexa go back a few years. Alexa's doing some great things in the community, but thank you for coming. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here. I know this is number 36. You have been doing this for just so long, and I'm just so honored to be by your side and to share a little bit of what's going on in my life. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. One thing about Alexa, very few people match Alexa's energy, especially for the nonprofits. So, Alexa, one question I always ask all my guests is the same thing. This is usually the first question. Then I have a last question I'm going to ask you as well. But how did you get here? What was your history? I'm always interested in wondering how people got to this point. So how did you get here?
So thank you for asking. I know my story. I think my people in Ecuador know a lot about it, but since I moved to the United States, so I was born and raised in Quito, Ecuador. My mom, American, my dad, Ecuadorian. So I've always had and seen both worlds. My dad comes from a very, very low income family that have been working really hard to get to where they are. My mother's side of the family, I had this different translation. I was able to see both worlds. I was able to be in an American school where all of my friends were from different countries and expats. And so I've always been able to be in that world, to be able to see the people who have and the people who don't. And so then my mom passed away when I was young, 16. I guess for some people it's not so young. My brother was 12 and I took care of him. My dad had a lot of mental health issues. And so what we decided when I was in Ecuador was that the best thing for my brother was for him and me to leave. So we left an abusive household. We can call it that way. It's taken me a little bit to get to that point to be able to say that. And so we moved to New Hampshire, where I was going to study my bachelor's. And my brother went into high school. I was his guardian. And so all of this to say, I've lived in Ecuador. I was able to come to the United States. I've started from nothing. I really have seen what it is that people need to be able to really thrive, from moving to New Hampshire and trying to figure out what type of insurance I would put for my brother because, he was younger and that the state was able to provide that for him, different things like that. And so I think I always started learning about it. And so when I finished my bachelor's, I went into really retail and that was some of the things that I did, but I ended up having really that need to be in purpose. And so I started at Leukemia and Lymphoma Society like 20 years plus ago. And so then my journey went into nonprofits because I felt that I really wanted to make a difference in that sort of way. I wanted we didn't have a lot of things. We did have quite a few growing up. My mom was able to put us in an amazing situation, and then we lost it. And so I think that was something key. And I think that's really part of where I am and who I am now.
That's a very interesting story, and I notice a lot of us, that's how we get here. Something happens in our lives. For me, it was my mom getting sick, and I had to retire from the military and come home and be her caregiver, and that led me into the nonprofit world. You know what I mean? Because I had no clue what what the organizations do and the services they provide, you know, and then being able to see it and having people come in like you who are interested in helping the nonprofits and providing service. You know, I mean, all of us, we need it. So Alexa is the CEO of Be Better Together. What is the mission of Be Better Together?
So we are builders of systems and infrastructure for the social impact sector. We are here to help organizations become unforgettable. We're seeing time and time again what you mentioned about the finances with the capacity building grant and how 9 of those organizations did not have a bank account. What I've seen in all of my time in the nonprofit sector is that there's a lot of need for real infrastructure and training for organizations, because we have a lot of real amazing mission-driven folks out there who are doing incredible things, and yet they need a little bit of guidance and infrastructure so that they can thrive and actually become self-sufficient. So that's what we're here to do: capacity building and connection.
So I know how big a challenge that is. A lot of the organizations, especially the organizations who are a little bit smaller, or starting out, and contrary to popular belief, everything does not need a nonprofit. We got to start being a little bit more judicious about how we do these, how we open a nonprofit and continue to run it. You know, especially if we're providing, you know, double services that are being provided already. But as we look at the nonprofits and the needing of your services, is it a challenge? Let me put it another way. What is the challenge for you in partnering with an organization in order to bring your services to them?
So let's take it back a notch, because one thing I want to mention is that my experience I was able to have 70 volunteers a day for 10 months of the year. And this experience, I took it from 1,000 volunteers to 7,500 in 5 years, with only the help of corporations helping a nonprofit organization. It was really being clear and making sure that I understood what I needed from those corporations and what they needed from me to be able to get those 7,500 volunteers a year. And so with that said, I was able to really fully understand the challenges that existed, because we needed so many volunteers for one organization, but I needed to ensure that corporations understood, okay, if I need to have start time and end time, I need to be able to have this for the next 3 months. Things that seem like a lot of work for an organization that is already trying to do everything they can to stay afloat, running programs. And so that piece of it, it taught me really to learn that language of how can we get the corporations to understand what they need from the nonprofits, because what I'm finding is the language that they speak is completely different.
Okay.
And there's a big gap.
I'm glad you brought that up. I'm really glad you brought that up. Because I've struggled with it with my organization as well, and trying to, how do I interest corporations in CRA? How do I make that connection? So you've had a lot of experience in connecting mission of
Correct.
Nonprofits, social impact organizations, connecting mission to corporations. And what you're telling me is there's a whole nother language being spoken to corporations that we don't know.
Absolutely.
So how do we, besides Alexa coming in and doing everything for us, how do we get to that, finding what that common language is, so we can get them interested? Because the banks are doing it by regulation and by law,
100%.
right? Corporations do it to an extent, but it seems it's always large organizations that they do it with. And believe me, no shade on them.
Absolutely.
I get it. Mm-hmm. But how do we get them interested, or how do we speak that language as smaller organizations in order to get them interested in seeing what the smaller organizations down on the ground doing the work? How do we get them involved?
honestly, I think you're a pro at this relationship building. I think we've forgotten what that means because corporations speak sales leads. They speak ROI, return on investment. That's what stakeholders want to know. If I give you money, how much of that will come back to me? Plain and simple. So how can we ensure that when mission-driven folks are saying we are serving 1,000 families and we are able to eradicate some sort of homelessness in this area, that means nothing for the stakeholders. They need to understand and it's even though we're speaking the same language, it's about honestly the words that we're using, the words that are being used by nonprofits because of the systems that are in place because of the nonprofits, how they're being built in the beginning of it. It's somebody who maybe suffered something, somebody who wants to make a difference, yet they don't understand that corporate a structure that needs to sustain something that they want to be self-sufficient. And so we need to be able to be clear that for the stakeholders, ROI and SROI is what it's called, social return on investment, is really we can make money and also help people. And I think that's the piece where we're lacking, not everywhere in the world. In Europe, they have it very clear. There's a lot of other places that have been doing this for 20 years plus. I think there's a lot of opportunity in the United States of how we can create systems and infrastructure, meaning a starting point for fundraisers, giving them not just go study at Lilly, which is incredible, but how do I get a donor? What do I have to do? And so that needs to get mixed in with sales leads. This has been done for years and years by the corporate world. So it's about really tying in and really explaining and teaching so that both really understand that we don't want them to get frustrated because it's like a German speaking, with a Mexican, and they can't get to the bottom line of something. It's like, can we really understand that we're both speaking the same language and we want the same and we can still do the same for everything?
So I know because to me what it sounds like, and please correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like we're so entrenched in and using the words that we've used for federal government, for government grants, with the banks, we've used the language with them, but we haven't found the right words, or at least putting it in the language that the corporations can understand, that equates to the same thing, but using a different terminology and so on, in order to get the corporations invested in what's going on in the community. That seems to be, because I run into the same problem. You know what I mean? I haven't been able to get one corporation to sponsor any of our things, any of our, or even any of our events, any of our meetings or anything. I have not been able to do that. The bank's not a problem, but the corporations themselves, because I have not learned what the words are to connect them to my mission, and that's what we got to learn, right?
It's amazing that you are able to say, where you're seeing that issue and naming it with yourself. I mean, honestly, I think that's the key of if we're ever going to get anywhere. It's really being honest. That's why in Be Better Together, we have social impact consultants, and I've called them gurus, because at the end of the day, I want people to come and tell me, where are you exactly? Like, what do you need? And did you make mistakes? Did you tell me the truth? And I think we need to start with that so that then we can move forward. Because what's happening is investors are not attracted to desperation. They are attracted to investments. And so if we can excite them about social impact, if we can, you and I were talking about it so much, and I love that. And I think this is the beginning of really, I've said it, let's change the word nonprofits to social impact organizations. I mean, really, if we look into the past of it, it really just started to become a nonprofit because of the tax, regulation of it.
Everybody used that
but they are social impact organizations.
Sure.
So I really think everything is the words that we use, the way that we describe things that happen. Everything is new right now. We have an opportunity with technology as well to really be able to do that easier. And then so maybe 10 years ago, or even 2 years ago. If you would have asked me that question, I would have said, well, we need to really, now I can tell you, let's use technology. It can simplify so much of it. And with what we bring with Be Better Together is those processes in place to be able to teach the organizations to use the technology for the things that they're already doing so that they can do it more efficiently.
Well, some of us will fight it.
It's tough.
That AI is a whole nother nine.
100%.
It makes me nervous. You know what I mean? Really more because it's something new. The folks I work with use it or don't use it or have a better grasp of it than I do. So as the social impact, I've been trying to stay away from nonprofit and say social impact organizations. As social impact organizations and Be Better Together, working with you. You can school us, for the lack of a better word, and educate us on how to better use the words in our mission to attract corporation, not just the checks, that's important, but volunteers as well. Because I don't know an organization that doesn't need volunteers, but volunteers as well to better bridge that gap between the way we've been talking. We got to learn a new language. The way we've been talking and the way they talk.
The system is broken. It's broken. The nonprofits need so much help right now. We're talking in the last 2 years, the world has uplifted, obviously, in so many different ways, shapes, and forms. But organizations who have, relied on government funding for many, many years now have had their world upturned. We're having so many things happening with us in November, with even, property taxes here in Florida. And so diversification of funding needs to be in the words of every single nonprofit leader, but not just the leaders. The whole team needs to understand that fundraising is the whole team. It's not just the board. It's not just the CEO. It's the receptionist. It's the volunteer coordinator. It's the program managers. We have been looking at fundraising as begging people for money when that's not the case. When we beg, again, if we look at scientifically, you repel when you become desperate. So we need to change the way we've been speaking completely so that we can actually get people excited. And if we look at the examples that are taking place clearly right now, we can highlight those examples, maybe happening in Europe, happening in our back door, and saying this is how we're doing it, and let's expand. I think this is a very exciting time. Even though AI comes with a lot, it's changing a lot. I've had the opportunity to really focus on learning it to the max. And I am more excited with the tools. I feel the amount of good that's going to happen because of the technology. I know that there is a lot of negative. I just think how much good we'll be able to achieve impact-wise for a sector like the nonprofit sector that has been under-resourced forever, to be able to have the tools that the millionaires or that people who have had the resources all the time, have had at their fingertips. For example, lawyers, for example, legal, for example, accounting, for example, just these different, if we learn how to use the tools efficiently with the work you are already doing, not a strategic plan to tell you everything you're doing wrong already. Let's figure out how we can fix what you're doing so that you're at this 2026 era.
So it's so, I really love that we're having this conversation about innovating how we've been doing
I get
things.
very excited, sorry.
Yeah, because we've been doing it the same way for years and years and years and years. Ever since I've been in the nonprofit sector for almost 25 years now, and we've been doing it the same way over and over and over again. And now there's a new day rising, and we want to bring in social impact investors with all the money that's being made and all the money that's particularly moving to Florida. We want those folks to invest in our communities because, as you stated earlier, funding is changing. Both federally, state, and county and cities, Funding is changing dramatically. Not just the point that it's changing, but it's going away as well. So we got to look at new ways in order to bring those investors together with the organizations who are doing this great work in the community. So I'm really looking forward to partnering with you, Alexa, in order to change the conversation, because everybody, it seems like from what you're saying to me, it seems like the different sectors who we speak to, I know there's a way that I talk to the financial institutions. I know there's a way that we talk to government entities, but we have not conquered that language of talk and making that bridge to corporations.
Correct.
Some of the organizations are, don't get me wrong, the
No,
large
correct.
organizations have no problem.
100%.
Large organizations, but there's also the large organizations that can afford that person.
And who have learned.
Yeah, who have
Throughout.
learned and can afford that person. That's all they concentrate on.
Absolutely.
Smaller organizations just don't have the money in order to hire a professional in order to do that. And we were talking about it with the Nonprofit Executive Alliance the other day about doing a service where we share the cost as organizations. We have an organization like maybe Alexa's organization that comes in and says, okay, well, look, I'll do 5 organizations.
Correct.
All of you pay an equal amount. And then maybe that's a way that we can do it, especially organizations who are sub 2 million or so.
That's the best way.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the best way we're going to have to do that. We're going to have to find the organizations who are going to provide those services.
I can give you an example in Europe, just in my family
Okay.
alone. My brother works for a company called Responsibility. They're headquartered in Zurich. They started 2003, I believe. They're worth 3.1 billion now.
Wow.
All they do is European investor money into developing country projects in developing countries in microfinance, housing, clean energy.
All the things that we're doing here.
Thank you.
All the things.
20 years.
All the things that we're
23
actually.
years already. There you have an example. Lisa LaFrance Project. Dear friend, she's an incredible, just high power woman up in Palm Beach. And so she comes, hedge fund manager. She learned how that lingo, that corporate lingo works. She was on Wall Street. And now she's here in South Florida, making sure that high net worth donors understand the need for these organizations to be able to thrive. And so an example I can give you from her, she is creating a real estate fund where people, as an example, you're putting in money, instead of getting 10%, you get 5% back. But because this nonprofit cannot build doesn't just need 10 housing units, they need 120 housing units. So how are we able to ensure that they get 120 housing units when they only got the money for 10?
Gotcha.
Is if we're able to make that something more exciting. So we do have some examples, not tons, but I think there's so much opportunity.
And and some of these examples, we got to make them. I think we have to make them. We have to be innovative. I'm really glad, Alexa, that you decided to open this organization, because we got to be innovative. We cannot think that we can solve a problem by keep doing it the same way over and over and over again. We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back.